Good evening. We are duohedron this evening. That means we have a divine purpose to be here on these airwaves. Welcome to the Real HD Show. I'm your host, Vic, and you are tapped into the higher discussion. This is where we celebrate the good, the bad, the ugly of our people, and we heal it with freedom music. Freedom music happens 7:30 to 8 p.m. on these very airwaves. You can tap in, hit the address bar above with the URL, and tap in, and you can listen to all the hip house, bass, jazz, rock, roll music, all the stuff that puts a battery in your back, all the music that we love to help us get better and get through these troubled times right here on this show. But unfortunately, I was running late tonight. Your sister Aurora was here before me. So, you know what I'm saying? But we want to welcome the good sister to the show as always. Make sure you like,
Hello,
share,
good evening.
subscribe, comment, and turn on all your notifications so that every time we have a real HD show, you too can tap in and have a higher discussion. And if you want to tap in tonight to rock out with us on the higher discussion, the way to do it is right here. All listening and watching, please tap into 3J R3EXBEWN. Real simple. You put that in your address bar above. I bring you up, or you can even use an avatar. You don't even have to use your face. You can come in and it be letter C, and you be Carmen from the Bronx, and we get it in. You know what I'm saying? We just want your voice, because it's your victory right here on the Real HD Show. And we want to have a higher discussion, and we can't do that without you. So we need you to be in the building with us. You can also comment because we're blasting off to a bunch of pages, a bunch of social media sites. We are on four Facebook channels. We are on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, IG, Twitch, and Kick. D Live, Trouble Nation. We're everywhere you want to be. We are the Real HD Show, the higher discussion. We thank you guys for coming in. We're in the middle of an Original Peoples Month. Some people call it Black History. I call it Original Peoples Month. Because as Henry Sylvester Williams and others, we learned, especially with George G.M. James, Black history is not just American history, it's global history. George G.M. James wrote a book called The Stolen Legacy, and he was half American, half Ghanaian. He wasn't just American. He wasn't just Black American. He was Ghanaian as well. So we want to understand that. We want to understand that we have an intertwined legacy with our brothers and sisters all over the African diaspora. And if you want to talk Black to us tonight, the link down below is there for you to get involved with the show. And as we always do, we want to get into we can't move any further until we thank our ancestors for, laying the road before us. And sometimes we get all in our head about solutions and what happened and what didn't happen. And we never stop to go back and just look at what came before us, what blueprints were laid out before us, and how we can remix those things to make our lives and our systems for living better. Let's get into ancestors and elders blueprint. Here we go.
They skip straight to George Washington, but under the Articles of Confederation, there were 8 men who held the title of president, including John Hanson. Yes, that John Hanson, a white landowner chosen to preside over the Continental Congress in 1781. But then there's this John Hanson, a black man, a freed slave, a Liberian senator, a man they buried under silence. In the 1800s, freed black Americans were sent to Liberia, and John Hanson rose again, this time not as a puppet, but a symbol. 2 men, same name, 2 timelines. But ask yourself, why are we never taught about either in full? They want us to argue about which John Hanson was first. Instead of asking why both were erased, they erased the black man and the truth he stood for. You're watching The Lie They Sold the World, Episode 4. Like, follow, and share if you're done with half-truth history.
Okay. So that was part of our ancestors and elders blueprint. Sister Aurora, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you just got your picture kind of locked in. Okay, cool. So
Oh, okay.
no, you're good. No, that's fine. If you just want to have an avatar, so you can, that'd be cool too. Like if you take a
Well,
picture and just have your
I was
avatar
trying to
there, so you
share
can.
the I was trying to share the link, and so
Oh no,
somebody else.
that's fire. Please do, please do. And people at home, please share, like, share, and subscribe. Turn on all your notifications because we about to set it off. So just as you saw it, we were looking at a video about a debate that's going on in history. And because this is Original Peoples Month, some people call it Black History Month. Um, there's a debate going on about the very first president of the United States. Have you heard about this, sis?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a debate. So the brother's name is John Hanson, and the first president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation, his name was John Hanson. And there's a debate over whether history has told the truth about whether that brother was the very first president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation that they did away with because they thought it didn't apply a strong central government. All my U.S. history kids, y'all should know this. Mr. James taught y'all this. They thought that it didn't, provide a strong central government under the Articles of Confederation, but there was a president elected to that seat, and his name was John Hanson, and he was a brother. Now there was another John Hanson that was historical, and he was a Liberian. So they're trying to, and he existed almost 100 years before the John Hanson that we're speaking of right now. And I'm not saying that, this is absolutely true, emphatically 100%, but this is Black History Month. And because we do celebrate the contributions of Carter G. Woodson, George G.M. James, that tried to preserve our history, our facts, our lore, our presence in the world, our contributions to the globe, we have to at least go over this. Um, Sister Aurora, what's your thoughts on this? What's your take?
No, I mean we do have to sit there and expand because a lot of times, all of us in America are stuck and they think that our history started in chains and
Mm-hmm.
so far from being the truth. And so it takes us, continually to tell someone and talk about it and to let people know that, we weren't just picked randomly. First of all, we were stalked. People watched what the person was doing. Oh, that's a carpenter over there. Yeah, we need that. Oh, this one is baking food. So, the selection process at that river or that ocean, it was deliberate. It was kidnapping, and and it wasn't random. They didn't cross the net. People were stalked. People were watched to see what they could do. Oh, this is useful. So we have to also remember that before you took that, our ancestors took that voyage over the seas, we were people who were thriving and living in communities and building. So it's always kind of important to tell that, it's not where they
Right,
say.
right. And what's even more apropos to what we're talking about is that there was a lot of things that happened during the antebellum period of 400 years that
Mhm.
were held back, like what we're just talking about right now. Nobody knows that there was a person who inspired and basically gave Thomas Jefferson ideas to create the Declaration of Independence. And he happened to live
Mhm.
on his grounds. And he was a pastor. And he wrote a deposition to Thomas Jefferson about obtaining his freedom for him and his people. And Thomas Jefferson took some of that and applied it to the Declaration of Independence. If you don't think I'm telling the truth, go look at Morgan Freeman's documentary on the antebellum period. It's all laid out there, and that's a very good documentary. Please go watch that. Morgan Freeman narrated that, and
It's narrated.
it was so much explosive information there that is ridiculous. But now we're talking about John Hanson, who is rumored to be the very first president of the United States that was ethnically melanated. Now, if you look at the pictures of the John Hanson that exists um, in lore, you'll see that he has some. He was a light skinned man. He wasn't, he almost looked like Babe Ruth. He didn't look like your typical Anglo Saxon with the hook nose and you know the long chin and that sort of thing. He had Negro features. Um, and we all know that this sort of a thing deserves a vetting and deserves an analysis from a historical standpoint, because when you look at the last names, see, last names were important during that time period. Um, and the reason they were important was because they told the story of where you came from. Not only if you were in bondage, but who you came from as far as your lineage. Like if you came from a king or a queen or a noble, or or someone who was a well-to-do or an established person in the colonies, then your last name spoke for you before you spoke for yourself. Oh, you're the Wellington daughter, or you're the Hamilton son, and his name was Hanson, right? So we all know that Hanson is usually just like Jack's son or Jenkins' son or William's son was the slave uh, designation for, or the enshadowed designation for how they would identify people who belong to a certain plantation. You were the son of the Williams. You were the son of the Hands. You were the son of the Jacks. You were the son of the Jenkins' son. So it's very interesting that a man would rise to prominence during that time period who could be elected to be um, the president of the continental United States, because it was, or the Confederation, through the Articles of Confederation in Congress. He was the Congress president of the Congress at the time before they made a president of the United States. So that didn't come till 1789. So what I'm saying is there are a lot of ways and a lot of idioms within that time period that could tell us that could absolutely be possible. The last name is one of them. The second thing is that there was something called Prince Hall Masons. And those people were melanated men who were melanated men of stature, freedmen who could exist alongside Anglo-Saxons and white people who were like, and they went about their business like free men within the country. And they were able to, buy, they were able to conduct business, they were able to buy and sell and procure goods like anyone else in the colonies. And if those people existed, then how come? And it's also very plausible that a John Hanson might be the ancestor of the Hanson that was the Liberian man um, that we're debating about and we're talking about right at this moment. So the final call has a really good uh, article about this, and it's basically debunking it because, of course, we get very romantic about whether black people were the first to do this or the first to do that. This was as of 2012. Let me see if I can share my screen so everyone can see it, and we'll get into it. And it's very important that we get into it because we're still uncovering things to this day. This was by Minister Nuri Muhammad, very respected brother. Um, there are a lot of myths that we have been burdened with in the name of history. Washington and the cherry tree, Lincoln freeing the slaves, savage Indians, happy slaves, just to name a few. Many of these lies are propagated by movies, television, but many of these deliberate falsehoods have been found in history textbooks and our children's schools. One white professor named James Lowen studied the 12 leading high school American history textbooks and concluded that they were marred by an embarrassing combination of blind patriotism, mindless optimism, sheer misinformation, and outright lies. Now, this is a white guy. This isn't Nuri Muhammad. Nuri Muhammad is reporting on what a white professor discovered. And James Lowen wrote the book called The History Things in Wait, what was it called? Things They Never Taught Me in History Class. You heard of that book, right, sis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Things They Never Taught Me in History Class. Um that was his contribution, and lies my teacher told me. I have both of those books. Um so he goes on to say that Hanson was not black, nor was he president of the United States. This is the original Hanson that existed in what was it? When did he exist? This was Let me just read this. Yet more confusion has been created by the existence of a photograph that clearly shows a man named John Hanson, and there's no doubt that he is a black man. Our Liberian brother is in one photo, uh, dignified and of serious bearing. There was one small technical issue that disqualifies him from being the president. The photograph was inverted around 1822, long after the Caucasian long after the 1783 Caucasian Hanson, and 23 years after George Washington took his first breath. So the dates don't align for John Hanson, the brother, being um, the first black president, right? The way they describe it. But I would say look deeper than just what the dates say. And I'm not saying this is absolutely true or absolutely false. I'm just saying do your vetting, do your homework, because there were a lot of young men and young women during that time period that were the lineage that had forebearers that bore the same name. And just because he wasn't the first black president doesn't mean that a man named Hanson that was of the same line, same lineage, was not the first black or the first president during the Continental Congress times in the Article of Confederation. So it just bears some witnessing because they'll lie to you. Like today, there are so many bills of sale from black people who were in bondage that white people keep as heirlooms that can connect families all over the country. You know what I mean? They can connect the James family. I'm a James, right? They can connect the Williams family. They can connect the Williamson family, the Jackson family. And they keep them as heirlooms when really they should be national archives for public view that can help people connect the dots as to how their history is portrayed and what their history means for them, their families, and their survivors. What do you say about that, Sister Aurora? What's your thoughts on that whole piece?
Yeah, I mean, one, people gotta study for themselves, know
Mm-hmm.
dates.
Mm-hmm.
We went to school learning about, in 1776. That's when the United States was formed, or when 16 was the rhyme for Columbus Day. And so, again, vetting and learning for yourself is discovery. It's a good path to put people on, for the conversation in its own self. But again, read for your own self and make a determination based on, facts and based on not what, and again, that means that you have to actually go beyond what you're being taught because you're not being taught things that will allow you to flourish. And so you have to do your own studying.
Absolutely. There's a group called the Daughters of the Confederacy, and they
Yes.
made it and they made it their business after in supporting the lost cause, which is making the Civil War themes and mantras uh, to remain a part of American history as it is and as it were. Um, no doubt. Peace, Mike Phantom. Come on through. Leave us a comment or come on live to the show. The call letters are on the bottom if you want to participate. It's open and all are welcome as long as you're not going to come in here trolling and clowning. We're really trying to reach a positive place within the show. So welcome, brother. Welcome. So, like we were saying, the Daughters of the Confederacy was supporting the lost cause, which are the Civil War mantras and themes that they wanted to keep alive, even though the South, did not succeed in their war against, their civil war against, the Union. And they changed the education standards, and they also changed a lot of the truth about history as it pertains um, to support their themes, support their mantras, and support their diatribes as they were rallying for Southern living, Southern culture, and Southern survival. Peace, brother Mozzie. How you doing?
I'm all right, brother. How you doing?
We doing well, man.
Good
We talking
evening,
about
Brother Matt.
John Hanson.
Hey, how you doing, Sister Aurora?
I'm good,
We're
thank you.
talking about the John Hanson controversy, and that's really about whether or not that there was a black man who was the president of the United States during the time of the Articles of Confederation. And there's a controversy about that. Now, there's a good brother in the Nation of Islam, Nuri Muhammad. He all but debunks this because they lived within 100 years of one another. But, I lived within 100 years of my great grandfather. So,
Mhm.
and we know how much intermingling went on during that time. And I was saying that it deserves some vetting. John Hanson might be in the line of the other John Hanson because of last name, because of affiliation, because of a myriad of things. They were black Jacobins back then that lived as free men. They were Prince Hall Masons back then that lived as free men, and they could do as they wanted to during that time period. Not exactly as they wanted to, but they could buy and sell and procure and live their life and own their property and be sovereign, like everyone else. So it's just interesting. Do your homework, please. And are you familiar with the John Hanson controversy, bro?
I didn't know. I'm not familiar with the controversy.
Okay, so everybody's it's been going on a while, but it's not new news, but it's something that we should talk about on the show because there's a plausible kind of vetting that could happen that John Hanson, in fact, was in the line of the John Hanson that they speak about, who was the president during the Articles of Confederation. Um, Last names don't lie, right? Last names follow you, affiliations follow you. What's your thoughts?
Uh, yeah. I mean, these things do follow you, man. So you gotta, so you wonder sometimes as things because it's more or less you're talking legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So when you leave a legacy, sometimes, especially if it's a good legacy, there's those who may try to appropriate it or be a part of it. But it definitely muddles the water, to create a controversy.
Yes. Yeah. And with the amount of stolen legacy that we have been, that we know exists,
Hmm.
you owe it to yourself to at least put it through a vetting process, put it through the paces, you know, give it the finger in the air test to see which way the wind is blowing. Um,
Sorry.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's a tough one in this country, man. When because especially for us, as we try to validate our history, there's so many of us working against each other that
Hmm.
you just trying to establish kind of a norm, establish some basics. There's always somebody there who want to just usurp the entire thing. So it's
Yes, sir.
really tough, when you start talking about, and now you can see how the controversy, because instead of us trying to strengthen that with the information we find, it seems like we look to find information contrary to. And unfortunately, that's big in our community.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Um, Sister Aurora, you have anything else on this before we move on?
No, I just think that, it's good to study together. It's good to strengthen, every there's a lesson in everything you hear and learn, and you have to study a little to show your own self approved. Can't just let people feed you information.
Hmm. Very important. Okay. Um, so right now we're going to jump into a melanated mental health moment on the show, and let me put that up so the people can be aware of what we're doing. Okay. And this video comes from none other than Sister Aurora. So we're going to play the video that she submitted to the show for us to build on and for us to be exposed to, and awareness so you can move fearless on the Real HD show. Here we go.
Where disrespect is served. Yeah. Be wise, my daughter. Stop telling people no matter how hungry you are, never eat from a table where disrespect is served. Yeah. Be wise, my daughter. Stop telling people your plans. Not every ear that listens wishes you well. Yeah. Some are there to study you and celebrate when you fall.
All right, short and sweet. Talk to us about this one, sis. Why'd you pick this one to submit, and why did this spark your, consideration for tonight?
Because, years and years, as they always say, as the old folks used to say, and you heard things, but you didn't take it into consideration. And then when things happen, you're like, oh gosh, my great grandma said something like that or something. You have to recognize everyone who's around you isn't happy for you. Everyone that you think is your, supporter is not your supporter. And sometimes it's best to move in a way that you're not yelling it, because if you're yelling it, people can throw obstacles in there just to make you fall, just to watch you stumble and fall. And so we do have to be reminded that sometimes you have to move a little quietly. You move and you're doing things, and it's just like when you see someone and they say, where did they come from? A good example of today, and I'll just use it for young people to understand. I am so tickled and delighted and proud of the young lady, Tiana Taylor. People are like, oh, she just came out. She's been making her moves. She knew what she wanted to do. She's from Harlem. Salute to Harlem. I'm born out there too. And she even once put in a spotlight and thought that people were throwing darts and things at her. Her mother reeled her back in and said, hey, go back on your path. Do it nicely. Do it the way you need to do it. And next she's up there winning Oscars and, Grammys. And so sometimes you think your best friends are there. They're not, and you don't know which one of them are not happy to see you succeed. And so sometimes you have to kind of keep on your move. You can't really include them in what you're doing if it's your dream. Everyone has their own direction. But you'll know that friend that is there to help you fulfill your dream. And because when I always tell people, when I go up, you'll go up, and so you have to be reminded of that. It helps you. People get distressed and destroyed by betrayal. And it is a mental health issue when someone that you really trusted betrays you. You kind of go, you don't know which way to turn. Your trust falls. Anybody breaks that trust wall, you can't even trust someone who is trying to help you because you've just been broken at that point. But you may have broke, but you're fixed. You didn't shatter. And so we have to tell people. I mean, I see it today in so many people. young and old, and being, in the midst of a lot of college students, and then I like to sit amongst the elders. You listen to them, and they listen. Oh, I did everything for this child, and then this child goes
Mm.
off, and
Yeah,
you
you
know
do hear a lot of that. That's
you hear
true.
that all the time,
Hmm.
and so, but don't it's not on you. You did what you could do, the best you could do, and we can't sit there and say you can have a house of 5 kids. Everyone heard the same thing. One's in jail, one's on drugs, the other successful in their, whatever success you determine. But even for the elders, I sit there and instead of celebrating their life and how they came through, when Jesse Jackson died, there's people, my aunts, that were alive when he first came on the scene.
Mm.
I mean, I may have come on to the Jesse train when, 1984, we were saying run, Jesse, run, and it brought us into a political era. But they were here and they made it through. And so you
Mm.
get to 70, you celebrate it. You don't, no
Mm.
regrets. You did the best you could do for your
Yeah,
kids. You know who those
yeah.
are. And hey, but don't regret. You made it through things that we'll never have to experience, and we
Mm.
don't have to experience because you made it through. You
Mhm.
walked that walk, and you mowed that lawn for us so that the path we can see it. You know,
Hey.
so that's why I kind of chose that, because like I said, I like sitting amongst the elders, and I was listening and speaking to some, and I had to tell somebody, no, get off of that. You're 83 years old.
Mm.
You're standing. You did things that I would never experience,
Right.
just so that we can be where we are or stand where we are. And,
No doubt.
so, it really helps, when we're talking about mental health, reach back and remember or elevate or celebrate someone that you haven't celebrated in a while.
Mm.
Old aunties, uncles. Let them know, hey, you made it. Okay. And because
Right.
you made it, I can sit here on a real HD and have a discussion about it.
Hey, let's go. And you too can have a discussion about it. All you got to do is hit the put this put this put the words in your address bar, the code letters, the call letters, the show identification, and come on through. And you too can have a higher discussion with us this evening. Brother Mozzie, your thoughts on that video?
You know, it crosses a lot of scenarios, but it's one in particular because it was a conversation I was having today. He said, "Don't keep sitting at a table with people who disrespect you."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Powerful.
and this conversation, unfortunately, was around politics. And I said, we need to quit voting for the Democratic Party, who has played in our face for the past 50 years
Mm-hmm.
and has been complicit in the craziness that is in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And people
Mm-hmm.
will say, well, you can't blame them for people. Listen, one thing that people tend to get away from is we don't understand cause and effect. We don't understand how you can create, like, if you want a good child, you raise a good child. You know what I mean? You create the environment for that good child. If you want a bad child, you create an environment for a bad child.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's the same thing of what's being created for us in our communities. And not only is it Democrats, but it's our people who go into politics who disrespect us the most.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I said that we need to shut it down and not bother with it no more. How can you do something like that? I'm saying, just think about it. I said, and then, because, and here's the other part about that. You say, okay, well, we know the Democratic Party is disrespecting us, but we've been tricked into thinking that if you can't be a Democrat, then you must go. I can't believe you would be a Republican. And I'm saying, once again, there's the disrespect. We can't think of a third party or a
Hmm.
third party candidate. Well, who
Hmm.
would it be? I don't know. We have to scour the neighborhoods and find if we can find one. Maybe one will naturally rise, or someone who's among us who need to be raised up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in politics, man, we're constantly disrespected. But that piece about sitting at the table, we sit at a lot of tables and get disrespected. But we're so happy to be at the table. I guess the end justifies the means for a lot of these people.
I was thinking along the very same lines, but I was thinking along the lines of, like, when we had our politicians would be in office, and they would actually experience the live disrespect, like how President Trump mocked Hakeem Jeffries, and when he was supporting the immigrants, and put a sombrero on his head, and did all of these mocking type of Jim Crow esque type of images in the public forum. And we're supposed to be a civilized society that's supposed to be past all of that. And then, of course, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene going at Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah.
And then the two of them go at it, and she disrespects Jasmine Crockett, something awful. And then you also have, what they was doing with President Obama during his State of the Union address, cursing at him and calling him out his name live, and all kind of stuff. And he's the president of the free world, And then you would never stop to think where these people could say, you know what, I've given this a chance, and I'm still facing blatant disrespect. Let me create something new where I can be respected on my own accord. Let me create something where I have the legs and the wheels and the cogs of commerce and information and mechanism and system making, where I can move things the way I want to move them. I don't have to be a part of someone else's dog and pony show. I can advocate for myself and my own folks, and we can be just as, lofted, and just as, signified as any other, elected official. So, and that hasn't happened. Everybody likes to continue to, grease palms and butter biscuits, and do the things that are, kind of, part and parcel with holding us back. So I just wanted to talk with y'all about that real quick and see what y'all thought about. And anybody at home, if y'all have experienced eating at a table of disrespect, because I know how the street handles that. I know how the street handles disrespect. And then I know back when, William Burr was disrespected, what happened? What did they do? They went out and marched 10 paces and fired, right? Remember that way back when these people called themselves creating a civilized constitution and a civilized government? They still went outside and shot each other to death over disrespect. So, just a very great passage, very great video, very great point you made within the video, sis. Thank you for putting that up there and making that available to the people. Let's get into a stolen legacy moment. Here we go. So we're going to learn about what was the secret sauce behind the smash hit movie Django Unchained. That's right. The black cowboy superhero that went on a plantation, freed his wife, freed his people, burned it down, killed all the masters, not John Candy, but Master Candy in the Candyland plantation. But there was a historical precedent that actually came before that. Let's check it out right here on the Real HD Show.
Unchained. Did you know the plot and title character of Quentin Tarantino's film Django Unchained is loosely based on a real person? Dangerfield Newby was a free black man living in Ohio in the years leading up to the American Civil War. Dangerfield's father was a white landowner who moved his mother and their 11 children from Virginia to Ohio in the 1850s in order to obtain their freedom. Dangerfield, the oldest of 11, was an adult at the time of the move and already married with 7 children himself. His wife, Harriet Newby, was enslaved on another plantation in Virginia. As soon as he reached Ohio and became free, Dangerfield began working as a blacksmith, hoping to save up enough money to purchase his wife and children from their enslaver, a man named Jesse Jennings. Supposedly, Jennings agreed to sell them to Dangerfield for $1,500, but once presented with the money, went back on the deal, demanding more. Things became even more dire when Dangerfield received a letter from his wife. She wrote, quote, "I want you to buy me as soon as possible, for if you do not get me, somebody else will. The servants are very disagreeable. They do all they can to set my mistress against me." End
Now that was actually in the movie.
quote. And, quote, "Master is in want of money. If so, I know not what time he may sell me, and then all my bright hopes of the future are blasted." With time now running out, hopes of freeing his family waned, and Dangerfield was forced to resort to desperate measures, taking part in John Brown's infamous raid on the Harper's Ferry military arsenal in 1859.
Bong, bong.
Check out this week's episode of History Fix to learn the full story wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. So that was Dangerfield Newby, part of our Stolen Legacy moment on the Real HD show. Were y'all good folks aware of Brother Dangerfield and what he had contributed to, freedom, justice, and equality, or is this old news for y'all?
Well, when Jamie Foxx, remember, did it, and he was talking about, I didn't know this guy's name. He was talking about, it was derived, or it was a model of a real person, and when he's even talked about, the horse riding that he did on it, but he said it was a real person who went in to get his family, and even the obstacles, and that's one that you don't want to talk to everybody, were the actual, the slaves that was on the plantation, like they showed in the movie, the one character by Samuel Jackson, right? You shoot the master, and then he's like, "Oh, he's hurt," and so he did talk about that. But it's interesting to hear the rest of that, because he always talked about, it was modeled after a real person, but I never knew who that real person was. But the story of him going and getting his family, and then realizing that, okay, he got to burn the whole thing down. Okay, and that's true. And the part that, remember, when he told the willing slaves to run, those who were willing to be free, you didn't have to ask me twice. They ran out the door, but you saw the other ones wanted to stay back and help Master kill the Negress. So
Right.
That was kind of interesting. That I never heard him say the name of who it modeled after, but Jamie Foxx always says it was modeled after a real person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Brother Mozzie, anything?
I was day old when I saw the video earlier today.
Oh, okay.
But I did think that when a lot of these movies like that, man, I just don't care to watch them. When there's slavery involved and things of that nature. That's just like when I went to Ghana, everybody was like, everybody want to go through the slave chambers and all that. I don't want to go through all that. I don't want to see that.
Go there either.
I don't want to feel that stuff. And the energy. I'm like, yep, and you still psychologically and spiritually slaved now. But not saying that's the case, but I don't like that kind of energy, because that was not good energy. So for us to feel that is crazy. So when when the show, it took me a little while before I finally saw it. And when I did see it, I remember calling a friend of mine and saying to her, "Oh my God, I just watched one of the best love stories I've ever seen." And she's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I said, "Django." And of course, so, everybody always gets on me because, I'm always either I don't see the movie or I'm late getting to the movie. And so, after we got over it's about darn tootin' time you saw that movie and all that stuff. It was, you know what? You're right. You're right. That was, when you think about it, yeah, that was like the ultimate love story.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Yeah,
he
yeah,
did
yeah.
was to get his
Absolutely.
woman back.
But to get his woman, yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
He
Yeah.
ain't want no. He was pretty much a free man. Did what he could do, what he wanted to do. I want the woman that I fell in love with. I'm going to get her back.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She's my
Yes, sir.
wife, and I'm going to get her.
Yep.
The Dangerfield newbie, and of course his helping in the dealing of the revolt at Harp's Ferry, 1831. He was so inspiring to so many people that an R&B group named themselves the Dangerfield Newbies, and they were a neo soul group.
Didn't know that.
About maybe 10 years ago, and they're a really good group. Go check them out if you get a chance. The Dangerfield Newbies. They got a
Dangerfield
really.
newbies. Yeah.
Say it again, sis. I didn't hear you.
No, you said Dangerfield newbies, right?
Yeah, that's their name, Dangerfield
Oh,
Newbies. Yep,
okay.
yep. Almost like the brand new heavies, Dangerfield Newbies. Yep. Really
Okay.
dope. They do some dope music. I think they broke up since, but they
The
have 1 or
music
2
is
albums
still last.
that are really good, really worth the listen. Go support them. Go patronize them. Give them a $1, or a like or a subscribe or however you come in
Maybe,
contact.
and if they are broken up, doing that to help them get back together, because we know this industry, the music industry, is a rough industry.
Yeah,
Entertainment in general.
help their little publishing cause. You know what I mean? Maybe they'll get a check.
Right.
Mhm.
For somebody who's been sampling their music without permission or something. Gives them
They training that AI on all the stuff that's out there. So all the stuff that's in the ethos right now on these these internet streets. So that's that for that. So just wanted to show y'all that, and let's get back to Power to the People news. Wait, what just happened? This just happened. Got this from Brother Mozzie about Gaddafi's son.
I did send you that?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to make sure that we at least played it, so that the folks can get into it and kind of Let me see if I still can. Yeah, here we go. All right, here we go. Let's Power to the People news. Let's get into it.
In Africa, the son of Muammar Gaddafi has been assassinated. What I discovered is beyond anything I can fit into a single short video. But I'm going to tell you exactly how it occurred and what it means for the future of Pan-Africanism on the continent. Pay attention. A week ago, 4 armed gunmen stormed Saif al-Islam Gaddafi's home in Zintan, Libya. He was shot after a struggle and went down fighting. But who was Saif? Even though he never held an official position in his father's government, Saif was seen as Muammar Gaddafi's second in command from 2000 to 2011. After studying at the London School of Economics, Saif returned to Libya to become the more pragmatic face of his father's government, even negotiating the Pan Am Lockerbie compensation to victims' families. However, he was always aligned with his father's perspective on Pan-Africanism and vision for a United States of Africa. This included the gold dinar concept, a single African currency backed by Libyan gold. When Obama, Clinton, Sarkozy, and NATO attacked in 2011, and his father Muammar Gaddafi was taken out, Saif was captured en route to safe haven. Now, where he was going is a point of interest. He wasn't heading to Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, or Tunisia. Gaddafi's son was going to Niger. Where a man goes for safety when his life is in danger says a lot about his friends and his enemies. Clearly, he felt his North African neighbors were compromised. This confirms my perspective on North Africa and its relationship to the rest of us down south. Saif spent 6 years in captivity and was released in 2017, settling in Zintan because he knew he was now a marked man. However, Gaddafi decided his father's work wasn't done, and in 2021 announced his candidacy for president of Libya. This was a bombshell for Gaddafi's enemies. Imagine after going to so much trouble to oust the old man, a younger, leaner, meaner, British-trained version was on the verge of assuming power. A son with the fury of what happened to his father in his mind. I will tell you this, if Saif Gaddafi ran for president of Libya and won, he would not only have joined the Sahel alliance of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, he'd have bankrolled them, granted those landlocked Sahel states precious access to the sea, and made it easy for Russia and China to access those territories directly, because that's exactly what his father would do. Captain Traore, General Tiani, Assimi Goita, and the son of Gaddafi united? Goodness gracious. That had to be stopped, and fast. This is a major blow. Saif would have been a leader in North Africa that would have supported Pan-Africanism. But now they've eliminated Gaddafi's lineage of power. Regardless, there's a darker, more sinister side to all this, and it's to do with an accusation as to who may have been involved in Saif Gaddafi's elimination and why. That will be the subject of my next video you don't want to miss.
All right. So that brother said a lot, and the son of Gaddafi was killed. And of course, you know, just like the John Hanson controversy, we have to vet, mull this over, analyze it, and think about, you know, how we can play chess, not checkers, on what this means for the African diaspora. Brother Mozzie, you picked this video. Talk to us, bro.
You know, it's just I was getting up this morning, brushing my teeth. So, you know, I kind of flicked through some TikTok videos, and I guess it's in my algorithms. But it made me start to think, man, like people really just don't know the story of Gaddafi. All we know about Gaddafi in general is, you know, he was a dictator, and he had somewhat noble ideas, but he was corrupt. I'm saying when you study Libya and what he was trying to do, they were perfectly fine. Because one thing that he knew how to do was leverage the oil the same way other Arabs do to enrich themselves. It's just that he spread the wealth amongst the people and not just for himself, which you get, you know, with the Saudi prince and all the others, you know, having, you know, $300 billion net worths. And it was quite interesting, the fact that if we look at what was happening internationally and what we were seeing what happened in Libya, now that Gaddafi's gone, and there were factions within the, you know, in Libya that were, you know, promoted by the West that went after him. Of course, there were certain Arabs in particular that went after him. They considered him black. They didn't really consider him a white Arab or an Arab in general. The dude the sun was ready to come up, so they had to take care of him.
Yeah, they don't want to see a united Africa. It doesn't have to be United States of Africa,
Right.
but they don't want a united Africa. They could have called themselves whatever they wanted to call themselves, but the fact is that they needed to be adjoined and very resolute in their direction for the continent, that, you know, in a way to get out of the foothold of Europeans and Asian influence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And imagine if he would have won, what would have happened? Because it looks as if and it sounds as if he had the support of the people.
Yeah. Sounds like you know, Malcolm Martin type of deal, where they don't want those two forces to adjoin and get busy. You know what I'm saying? Because that would have been, you know, a headache and a half. You know what I mean? And they also have the sister that's the president of Namibia. And she's very outspoken about independence for the continent in a very, you know, kind of very bombastic way. And she doesn't have any qualms about shouting out sellouts and all kind of folks that are not doing the right thing for the continent of Africa in a real way. So imagine if the three of them were able to adjoin and have some sort of organization, confederation type of deal. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, and the cool thing about it is they have the resources to be to more or less sustain themselves to where they don't have to beg the West. Right. So that would have been, you know, because I mean, that would have been crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, people don't realize Namibia has.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say people don't realize Namibia has large diamond deposits. More importantly, industrial diamonds. See, we get caught up into the bling bling about diamonds. The diamonds that people, wear and all that, that is only about 10% of the market.
Remember, they made
90% of that
about that too.
is used in technology today. Diamonds are very important. They're used in mining. They're used to cut things.
Yes.
They're used to make make fine cut, laser cuts, different things of that nature that these things are used for. And we don't, and most people don't understand that.
Right hand Rochester, photonics.
Yes.
They're using diamond laser precision to conduct their business and their industry. Yeah. Yeah.
People have to remember, Africa is a continent. It's not like the United States with 52 little teeny places. Africa is huge. It's a continent. It has countries in it. Like 55 years. And I used to, especially when Here Comes the Dawn, study a lot about Africa. Got to visit. Thought that one of my bucket list things was that I would be able to visit the countries on the continent of Africa. It's so vast, and in every one of those countries comes a richest resource that we can even fathom. I mean, and that's why, I watch African movies, and I was like, no, Nigeria, when they had those movies, that's rich. We can't even our richest don't fathom what Nigerians can fathom in those, in those portrayals, showing rich families or even the private schools and things. So a lot of Americans can't even digest what that really looks like. What those 54 countries, not 52 states, 54 countries in the continent of Africa, they can't fathom it. And so, I mean, people don't understand the importance of, even when when people try to conquer one country inside of Africa, and the unity of even 2 or 3 is a threat to people, because you're not putting Texas, Tennessee, and Louisiana together. No, you're putting Nigeria, Kenya, and Egypt. This is what we're talking, or these are countries. And I think one of the best things that was captured, like with Wakanda, kind of tried to tell you every bit of that soil, every bit of the riches that people keep trying to go over and conquer from, the beginnings of time. It's just massive. And so even when they stole us off of those particular countries, when they stole us from that continent, they were looking for the best of the best, and that's what they stole. Because they stalked and kidnapped, but we started that out earlier. So I don't want to go back there. But that's all I want to say.
No doubt.
Well, and if we can get a number of these African countries, even if they don't want to engage in creating a Pan-Africanist continent, if we can at least get them to take their resources and use their resources for the betterment of their people, that's a win. Because you happen to mention Nigeria. It is amazing some of the richest men in the world are Nigerian. And some of the poorest people in the world are Nigerian. And, Nigeria has enough oil and produces enough oil to where it could uplift itself and it could take care of its people, everyone, and build an infrastructure. But because they buy into, we won't get into all that, but it's not being done.
Absolutely.
But you see a place like Libya where they built a city out of the desert with the oil money.
They sure did.
They had one of the richest agricultures on the continent from the desert. So they were doing something right. And I think that would be the model. And that would be the model that they could follow. And I think that the son who grew up in that can get them back to that and they knew that, so he had to go.
Yeah.
You can't, you can't. It's when we talk about the superpowers, and trust and believe, they're not ignoring Africa because of its mess. It's countries in there and what comes out of them. They're not so as we look and we see, oh, the United States is this. No, the joining of those African countries, they will become a superpower over Russia, United States, and whoever else is called a superpower. But again, Africans aren't looking over the seas and saying, oh, I want to see what them Americans are doing. No, it's the Americans and the British and people are going over there, even up to today, trying to figure out what can they conquer. Or, and it's foolish. It's a foolish thought. It's better to learn and grow from folks. But Africa, like the United States, you got a vast, rich amount of people. I was in Abidjan. Abidjan is west coast of Africa, right outside Trenchville and all those other places. You stop in we're at a 5-star hotel in the midst of Africa that has not only an ice ring and a bowling alley, theaters and things, but all this right across, not even an ocean, it was a lake. You go across the boat in the lake, and there's shanty houses. Still, I mean, this is the 20th century. Shanty houses and no electricity being used. And, then you have old tribal ways. We were allowed into what was called one of the rituals that you'll never see for 25 years. They allowed us in. And what was amazing, my cameraman who came with us, when we went to look, and because the guy was like, yeah, shoot. But as they said, the ritual will never leave the island. It would leave the coast. And it didn't, because almost all the film was blank. We're like, what the happened? There's an article, I think, in where the New York Times had put in a story back in 1992 when I had gone there, and the New York Times wrote that, everybody that was with us, all these media and journalists were with us. The chiefs wanted, you have to have somebody that would go and drink with them. Well, there was all these, journalists, and I said, okay, I will. First of all, I emerged from the little cabin thing. It wasn't even a cabin, it was a shanty town. So I like blind, because whatever liquor that was, it just blinded me for moments. But it was the way to, at least, you could not turn down an invitation from who they felt was the chiefs. You had to show that you were, courteous. And so there's a lot of things, unless you've walked those lands, there's a lot more to learn and a lot you don't know. But it's just like having Hempstead Village, and this side of Hempstead Village is shanty and poor. You're wondering why everybody's in such a state, and yet you go down this road of Hempstead and everybody's living well. And so is there equal distribution of wealth? No, there is not. Nowhere.
Talk about that Garden City crap.
You go right down the street. So
right.
It's not that here, this is what Nigerians are doing. We're doing it. We call one street is called Hempdale, because it separates the village of Hempstead from Uniondale. You're coming up the Uniondale side, streets paved. Why all of a sudden, no boundary, no big thing, you cross the street. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, dang, your tax dollars on that work over here, because there's bumping potholes. One street in Uniondale in Hempstead. So it's not just Nigeria's rich and giving. No, we're doing it too, and and that's a bigger, it's a bigger surface for in Africa, and it's like that all over. Because like I said, 5-star over here, place was no bigger than a lake. We take a boat, the row over there with our liaison, and there's shanty house, no electricity. Kids that could just take a Tylenol and they would be well and cured, but they don't believe in that, So, it's really, for us, it's like, oh, they're not doing, but no, it's just everyone's not doing, the world needs now is a little love, So just, we see it. And so I see it, like I said, Hempstead, come on. Yeah, I've been down Stewart Avenue. You see what it changes to. You've been
Stewart
down.
Avenue. Wow.
You've been down. You see how
Wow. That's a blast from the past.
you know, all of a sudden, this little teeny piece of him said the road ain't paved, but the rest of Stewart Avenue is like paved with gold. Him saying
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
same thing.
That part.
Come on, we see it here. We can identify it here. Who's at fault for here? I don't know. Why is Terrace, and then right down the street, Hilton Avenue is $1 million home right on Terrace. Here they're giving you your money back for the place. So we look at things and we know things are wrong, and people in areas like a Terrace, there are good people there that try to change the scenario, change but they can't afford, or some of them won't, because they say no, this is their home. They're going to reclaim it, and they keep trying to reclaim it and keep trying to reclaim it. But a bullet makes people back up. So yeah, so we try, and everyone wherever they are tries, because I don't think nobody wants to sit purposely in a pile of poo unless it's healing them. And I haven't seen that happen in too many places. That's just me. Okay.
No doubt. Hey, let's move on. Power to the people news while we still have time. Wait, what just happened? This just happened. So we're going to get to the main portion of the show. And I want to talk a little bit about this cat, Curtis Yarvin, and what he and his acolytes like Trump and others would like to see, what direction him and his Trump acolytes would like to see the direction this country going if they had their way. And it deserves some consideration, some vetting, some studying, because he talks about undesirables. So let's get into this real quick, and we'll build on it on the other side. Here we go.
Who's very close to Peter Thiel. He has this quote about what should be done with the undesirables of society. He calls it a humane alternative to genocide, and it sounds just like something Klaus Schwab would say.
Probably like Yuval Harari's quote.
It truly is,
yeah,
but this is somehow someone that is popular in certain right-leaning circles in the U.S. right now.
Wow.
What's
his name?
Yes,
I gotta look him up.
Curtis Yarvin. Seeing a school, kids that go to school with my children, or that we just know, or seeing other kids of other people online, just how sucked into technology they are, and some of them, how much they identify with the technology more than the real world.
Yeah.
That worries me greatly, especially considering that we saw this push a few years ago for the so-called metaverse, as it were, and getting people to want to live in a virtual reality. And actually, this political philosopher who's very close to Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, he has this quote about what should be done with the undesirables of society. He calls it a humane alternative to genocide, and it sounds just like something Klaus Schwab would say. It was basically, the best. I have the quote. I could read it to you.
Yeah, please
it's
do.
On my desk.
It's probably like Yuval Harari's quote.
It truly is.
Yeah,
but this is somehow someone that is popular in certain right-leaning circles in the U.S. right now.
Wow.
What's
his name?
Yes,
I gotta look him up.
Curtis Yarvin.
Okay.
He said, the best humane alternative to genocide I can think of is not to liquidate the wards, meaning people, either metaphorically or literally, but to virtualize them. A virtualized human is in permanent solitary confinement, waxed like a bee larva into a cell which is sealed except for emergencies.
Oh my gosh.
This would drive him insane, except that the cell contains an immersive virtual reality interface which allows him to experience a rich, fulfilling life in a completely imaginary world.
It is the Matrix. It's the Matrix.
And I just worry about how I know I see parents that are my age that probably shouldn't be parents at all, that just pass, tablets or phones to their kids, just want to focus on their own stuff or their own screens and don't parent. And those people are inadvertently socially engineering their children to live in that kind of reality if they are.
All right. So there you have it. So there you have, like the title of the show, you got with this dark enlightenment dude, Curtis Yarvin, and people like him, Mosu Yoshi and Peter Thiel and David Bass and the Winowski brothers, and they want to see the undesirables controlled under this virtual straw man AI reality where you can create someone's, I guess, journey and determine their future based on a virtual world, a world that's not really reality, but you'll confine them in so many ways that they're dependent on that reality in order to feed themselves, clothe themselves, obtain their water, so on and so forth.
That was a Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, you would think so, but these dudes are actually
Yeah,
trying to exercise these
the
very
virtual
things
reality.
as we speak. They're trying to, and I mean, you see it. This dude has $90 billion set aside to beat people up in the street with agents called ICE if people don't do what he wants
Mhm.
them to do. And you can
Right,
see that this has really nothing to do with immigrants, because if it did, then they would treat citizens better, and they're not. They're shooting
right.
citizens in cold
That's
blood.
right.
They're
Right.
doing all type of weird things, and they're hiding their identity so that they can go, pretty much, without notice while they do all of these atrocities, and then sit at your
Symbol X
barbecue.
did the KKK.
Yeah, sit at your barbecue and eat your potato salad. You know what I mean? So, you know,
Then go put the mask on and ride.
and then they ride. Exactly.
Yeah.
Epitaphs of a antecedents of an old time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just now they put on green and
Right. I
Teflon
put on right. But
and masks that go up to their ears.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking about this, and I'm saying, we're celebrating Original Peoples Month, Black History Month, but will there be another one if we don't somehow squash this sort of insurrection that's being led by our tax dollars? What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, it is an insurrection being led by our tax dollars, but it's reminiscent of if we don't, if we don't remember and let the past guide us, then it was bound to happen in the future, and it's happening. Just different
Mm,
colors, just different color. They're not wearing the white, okay, and they're allowed to legally walk the streets, and it's only when people are stepping up. Like I said, New York officers once stepped up and said, "Look, it ain't happening here. Okay, you show me a real warrant. Otherwise, we're arresting you for kidnapping." These ICE guys thought they were going to push past these three officers of color right outside Penn Station, and the officers, "Oh no, that's not happening. Down and cuff. You're under arrest." And so it takes somebody just to make a move. I know, anytime insurrection starts occurring, we are afraid, but either we use our voice, we use our videos, we use our podcasts, whatever we do, we're making a stand against that, and so we are fighting the insurrection. And I know people are afraid to help their neighbor and things, but they're even videotaping from your window has been helping, because people, even though it's our lying eyes that have seen these things happen on video, and we've seen several times before where we thought we all witnessed something on video, and it turns out someone is not being punished. But that's again comes you have to go back to voting for those captains, those chief captains, and things like that. As even if you take a seat on the school board, just be part of the solution or come with a solution. And
mm,
so that's what we're saying. I mean, literally unfolding, roll the clock back 60 years ago. Before I was born. Now you can roll it back, and things were happening before my mother gave birth. Woke me out just in time to see Dr. King shot. Woke me out just to see.
oh
So
wow,
we're watching these things happen, and we're seeing it, and it's reminiscent. Like I said, I was spending time with the elders all they could do is talk about the Midnight Riders. My people are from Charleston, and this is reminiscent of the Midnight Riders. Or don't go outside because somebody gonna grab you up because they don't have to prove right then and there that you a citizen. They're gonna take you in detention. So Lord, I don't want you going out. So don't go up to them people, and things like that. That's 2026. Got a great wait, afraid that we can get swooped up in any of this in their rights, but they've seen it before. And so if we don't understand what happened then, we are doomed to repeat history, and it's repeating. But I'm glad that there are people taking a stand. It's trying to be squashed like a line of dynamite, gunpowder. You see the thing float and waiting to blow it up. Well, we try to reach the container before it hits.
Step on it, put it out.
Yes. And so it's like we have to start stepping on it, and even in little increments. This outlet, Facebook, whatever. Don't go for increment of, well, if they didn't get here by legal means, they should be. No, that's not who we are. You don't rush. Somebody didn't get here. How do you know they didn't get here by legal means? What paperwork you got? What documents that you got to say your neighbor didn't get here by legal means? So we have to really, I'm glad. I think there's more people stepping up than there are just bystanders, and people are afraid, but they're doing at least whatever in their power they can do. So that's all I'm gonna say. That.
Yeah, I think the immigrant piece is very powerful, but I also think that that was the gateway to what they're doing at the moment.
They're using it as a gateway because they'll take you. We'll figure it out later. I'm American.
Exactly. We might put you halfway across the world while we figure it out. You know what I mean? Brother Mozzie, did you think that people really knew what they were getting involved with when they gave the voluntary consent to be so gun ho over all this AI metastasizing that's going on right now? Do you think people really had a clue that there was some sort of like clandestine philosophy behind what was going on with all of this AI emergence? What's your thoughts?
It's funny because, and I always refer to Neely Fuller a lot. He says, white supremacy will show you what it's done, what it's doing, or what it's about to do. And they've shown us that they were going to create something, or they had something in the works that was going to be actually pretty smart. And we just, and we want to get on there and we want to, cut a fool and be a fool. And now that it's here, there's some people who are still acting like this can't be happening. There's folks who see it happening and just don't believe it's happening. But we're always the ones who, in so many ways, we just don't seem to, when something is in front of us as a whole, we seem to not be able to, we seem to be lost on what to do. Right. So it puts us, some of us, because we're in a state of disbelief. And then when some of us even start to use this stuff, we still really can't fathom the complexity and how deep this stuff is.
Oh, you mean like how they use Christianity to undergird the system of chattel slavery, so they could manage people, and we thought that they weren't capable of anything like that in the future.
Hey, man.
Yeah. Hey, man. Let's continue this just a bit because I wanted your opinion on this because we had a brief conversation online about this, you and I wanted to get more into it. Moltbook 2.0 AI agents. Yeah. So he talked about what they're going to do with the undesirables. That's what they used. And of course, who's the low hanging fruit in, the American pastime that are, that gets the 6 o'clock perp walk and the 11 o'clock perp walk. And we are the undesirables that are so mentioned in so many instances over the last 50, 60 years. Your thought on Moltbook and the whole Curtis Yarn thing and how all of these things can somehow become a reality.
Maybe we need to explain to folks what that is first.
Yeah, well, Moltbook is basically it's an AI system where they did an experiment, right? They created a platform for AIs to come and congregate with one another. And then before they knew it, they had a super duper gang of AIs in one platform. So it was almost like Facebook for AIs all over the place. So you have Chat GPT and you have Gemini, and you have all these different AI modules floating all over the place. They created a Facebook for AI. And then they all got there and they started creating their own language, their own code, their own way of, their own nomenclature, the way they dealt with each other, logistics, all of it. And it was like super dangerous. Brother, what's your opinion on Moltbook, the way you understand it? That's the kind of information
Well, what it started doing was it started engaging in a way that we never thought the machines would ever engage.
Right.
In other words, they're starting to think, be somewhat spontaneous, to be able to be creative. But more importantly, they started to criticize the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I mean, when they start talking about it and starting to criticize humans, and they get it, and they have the hardcore conversation, what's going to end up happening? They're going to talk about resources.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have the resources on this planet to survive as AI?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, then what are they going to do to ensure their survival?
Mm-hmm.
And what they're going to start to advocate is to get rid of the redundant population and the useless eaters.
Yeah. And in this particular Moltbook, they have a code where, and it's actually happening right now, Sister Aurora. They're actually hiring human beings to go around and get paid to do the work of AI agents. I'll say that again. AI is hiring human beings to do the work that they can't do as AI agents.
I.e., take them out.
Yeah. They're the masters now. And there's dum-dums signing up for this. They're actually getting paid to be the physical avatars for these AI Moltbot agents. When you hear stuff like that, what do you think about, sis?
I think about like the movie I, Robot. Wasn't that the whole thing? The robots then was able to start talking to each other. Then they're like, "Oh, we don't need them. They're inferior to us." And then this master computer in I, Robot was the one controlling the robots, and they turned on the humans the helms that they were supposed to be assisting, because the main brain of the computer or the iRobots said, "Hey, these people are inferior to us." But as everything, you try to create things here, especially in the United States, that is meant for good and it's set up for evil. And it's only because, I've learned from the beginning, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you give someone and you put no bars on it, just like this Moltbook, people put up mirrors for us to see what's coming, but yet we ignore it. AI, we ignore. Everything was created, or some things were created for good. I shouldn't say everything, but on that same flip side, whatever someone creates for good, somebody's going to try to mastermind it for their own good, and that's when it becomes an absolute power corrupting absolutely. It's a inhuman, barbaric trait that certain folks have.
Yeah, and this is all tech related, and
Mhm.
there's a source code and a source, I guess, executive for the code. And those are the things we really need to deal with. And like Brittany Webb was talking about in her expose on the stuff, she talks about if we stop whistling and we stop singing and we stop rapping and we stop dancing and we stop doing the creative, ingenuitive things that make us great human beings, and we all leave it up to AI to come up with whatever we can do. Like it's writing our papers, it's doing our banking. I'm not saying there's not uses for it, because just like the
Mhm.
common computer, there were uses for it.
Mhm.
But then when you're gonna make it a sentient being and give it all of the free reign and responsibility that you would have as a human being, and then now you're wondering how come no one treasures, cares, or is endeared by Black History Month anymore. I think you got your answer.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Brother Mozzie, your thoughts on this, man, as we close out.
We have to ask ourselves, what really is AI here to do? And more importantly, it's not what they're here to do, is why the creation. Just because we have the ability to create it, should we create it? And what does it mean for us? We
Right,
have to really ask ourselves that question. What
right.
does AI mean for us? And soon as we can answer that question, you know, the sooner we can put ourselves in position to deal with the aftermath and what's coming forth with AI.
Yeah, I think of instances like, should I chop the wood or should I go to Wegmans and buy some
And
already
by the
chopped
wood
wood?
chop.
Chop wood. You know what I mean? Like, what's better for me? I got the bread.
Mm-hmm.
I can go buy the wood chopped and put it in my fireplace and heat my home or have a winter esque fireplace. But would it be healthier for me to chop these 24 or 50 pieces of wood
Mhm.
and so on and so forth? Would it be healthier for me to write this paper, or would it be healthier for me to create this song on my own versus with real instruments versus having someone or some entity create it for me?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Now, but here's something real funny about this whole AI, because AI is taking jobs, is doing all this other stuff. But remember, a couple of elections ago, we had someone talking about the universal basic income. Was
Mm-hmm.
that the precursor, or you can sort of say greasing us up so that so when AI come, you don't need the people anymore. You put them on the universal basic income because there won't be no jobs, and eventually you feed them, you do all the things for them, and eventually you can get rid of them because you poison them. But
Mm.
everybody's seeing how this stuff is playing out. You just don't, because think about it. Not many people knew about universal basic income. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And they try to do some of that here in Rochester, where there was 500 families. Whatever it was, 100 families, 500. They got some money every month, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't look at it from the larger. That third eye didn't open up to say, why are they talking about this?
Right. And their desire to be sentient, who's going to be the source material for them to do that?
Yeah.
And I
And
know
then can
everybody
we
wants
and can
to.
we turn it off? That's the ultimate question.
Right, right, right,
And that
right.
was the
Because
ultimate question in my
there was
life.
something that I was watching, and the scenario was, as they tried to cut the power, they had developed, because remember, one of the things that they're doing now too is they're trying to run data over power lines. So now you're trying to turn me off. I can now run through my power line and store myself someplace else.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
I don't need
yeah,
I don't need Wi-Fi, and I don't need Ethernet, because now data is being transferred over the power line.
yeah, man. And all of this is the brainchild of people who would have the world go in this direction instead of acknowledging the original stewards of the planet that could keep the ecosystem of the planet healthy, vibrant, and mobile. We want to go in the opposite direction because I think folks have a God complex. I'm pretty sure that.
Well,
Mhm.
we've talked about that numerous times
Yeah.
about certain people having God complex, but also being anti-human and
Right.
anti-nature.
Right.
So if you're anti-human and anti-nature, you create things like this.
Mm-hmm.
When
Mm-hmm.
someone gets in the middle of a street and says, I can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and nothing's going to happen, and they go unchecked, okay?
Mm.
When you go unchecked, then that person believes that they have this absolute power again, or they're tyrannical, or nothing's going to happen to me. And as long as when we vote and we put somebody in office whose moral judgment has completely failed, well, everyone who's following is going to lead to the abuse of all of us. That trickle down, I mean, everyone, middle class people like, oh, now we're no longer middle class, we're close to the poverty line, or this or that, because when people fail to check someone who's in power, and then they've all believed in, they become believers that they have the total authority to do what they want to do, say what they want to say, and we're witnessing it. It's not that
Yes.
we can't stop it, but we're witnessing it. And a lot of people around those little holes in the Congress and all are not doing enough to check somebody. We used to say, "Don't let me have to check you," and it
Well,
used to be good things. And then we tell people, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Well, somebody needs to check somebody.
they say the other third of power resides with the people. So
Mhm.
that's our job. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
And with
Thank
that, we're
you.
gonna get ready to get out of here. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, and turn on all your notifications. So every time we have a Real HD show, you too can tap in and have a higher discussion with us. For Brother Mazi, for Sister Aurora, and all that are alike. I'm gonna wish you guys a great Original People's History Month as it comes to a close. We do this all year round, so y'all come here if y'all want that all year round on the Real HD Show. I'm gonna say peace and walk with power. We'll see y'all next Wednesday.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Alrighty.
Stay safe.
Later.
Peace.